everybody, I don't know about you, but basically as soon as turkey season's done, I am thinking about deer hunting. So I figured I'd run through 5 of the tips and tactics that I use when hanging trail cameras to get better results in the field, get more photos of deer or whatever I'm trying to chase. So tip number 1 is looking at camera height. So an adult whitetail deer is somewhere between 2.5 to 3 feet, maybe a little over, at the shoulder when they're an adult. So when you're hanging your camera, based on the terrain that is around the tree on which you're planning to hang your camera, just be sure to kind of look at that, because hanging the camera at the proper height will get more triggers of animals passing through. So the way that this tree sets up is there's a real big depression right next to the trunk of the tree. And so even though this is hanging at about chest height on here, everything that's gonna walk down this trail and down a trail that's leading away from this tree should be right at shoulder height. And obviously on this one, this is the Moultrie Edge 2 Pro. I can use the live aim on that and check it on my phone and make sure that I'm standing right exactly where it should trigger if the deer comes by. So just be sure to hang your camera at the proper height so you're capturing the largest chunk of that animal's body to make sure that camera triggers and sends you more photos from the field. Okay, so tip number 2. And yes, I realize that this one is going to be contradictory to what I just said in tip number 1. So in most cases, you want to hang that camera somewhere between 2 and 5 feet high, depending on the terrain around, like I said, to capture those deer coming by. There are times when you're going to want to hang the camera out of typical eye line for when humans are walking around. If you're hunting heavily pressured public land, or maybe you're hanging a camera for security purposes on your property. So one thing you can do is hang that camera high. So you can get it up there, you know, call it 8-9 feet high. And to do that, I always carry just a single climbing stick into the woods with me. That way it's super lightweight and I can do this real fast. Typically doing this just to avoid having a camera get stolen. I'm also, if I'm hunting heavily pressured public areas, I'm always locking cameras up. And honestly, I pretty much lock cameras anytime I run them on public. So anyway, use a single climbing stick, and then you can see here, you can get that camera pretty much up as high as you're gonna wanna get it, which can be nice if you also wanna leave that camera soaking in there all year and you don't wanna think about anything bumping it off. Maybe they run cattle on the property and you don't want a cow rubbing against that tree and rubbing that camera off, because cattle are pretty hard on equipment. But again, I understand it's contradictory to tip number 1, but tip number 2, hang them high if you wanna get a little bit different vantage point for your camera. It can be useful in lots of situations. Tip number 3 for hanging cameras is to clear the brush, especially if you're hanging cameras in areas with lots of really tall green foliage. After you get that camera hung, be sure to clear out an area, cut off any branches that might blow into the frame of that camera. I can't tell you how many times I have had the sun heat up an opening just right, and as those leaves get to blowing, I get tons of false triggers. So try to knock down as much of that as you possibly can. 1, it'll capture more animals that go through that area because you've knocked down all of that brush. And 2, you'll have a much better view at night. Anything that overhangs in front of the camera, that infrared will shine back at you after that reflection bounces off. So the more you can open up that view in front of the camera, the better the image quality, the better the video quality is. So you can let that camera soak a lot longer without having to go back in and trim branches or move things. Do it right the first time, clear the brush, and have better success in getting more photos when you put this thing on the tree or on a post or on a stake. Regardless, it will perform better if you do your job and clear out a little bit of that brush. Okay, tip number 4 is preserving battery life. The goal with the camera is to let that sit out there as long as possible in whatever location you decide. You don't want to be constantly going back out and having to either add AA batteries or recharge the lithium battery. Obviously, if you run solar, you can let it soak as long as you want, as long as you have an open enough canopy to allow that to do so. But a few ways to preserve your battery life. 1, if the model of camera that you have has the AI tools, use them. Both the zones, where you can erase different zones that may have a branch that's blowing a little bit more. Even if you cleared it, you had one blow back in or something, or there's grass that grew up that you didn't expect to grow that tall, use the zones so you can cut those out. 2, use the AI tools that only send photos of certain things. So if you want deer, have it send photos of just bucks and does. If you wanted to send photos of hogs and turkeys and people and vehicles, obviously you can select all those, but cater it to what you want it to send photos of, and that will help cut down on false triggers. False triggers are one of the biggest battery sucks on cameras because it's constantly searching for signal and sending you images of stuff that you don't want. 3, change the upload frequency to as long as you can stand it. Obviously, you can go all the way up to 24 hours, which I recommend if you are not in season. You only really need it to upload once a day. The immediate feature is nice when you're getting close to season or you're actually in season and you're hunting. Having that immediate upload is super nice, but as long as you can stand it, keep that upload frequency length as long as possible. And then 4, this depends on where you have your camera hung, but if you have a very high traffic area or you're hanging it over a salt lick or a feeder, change the length of the delay to longer. Change it to a minute, change it to 5 minutes, so you get an image of something that comes into the feeder or the salt lick or a scrape or a whatever, but it's not gonna take 100 photos or send 10 videos while that same deer is standing there. So you still get all the intel you want, but you're not killing the battery on the camera. And finally, 5, use nice batteries. If you want to use lithium AA's or rechargeable lithium AA's, that's great. Obviously, Moultrie has lithium battery packs, and those last a long, long time. If you want to have the longest lasting battery, obviously just pick up one of the solar panels, put that in a spot that has enough sunlight coming in either through the canopy or at the field edge, somewhere that has enough sunlight to keep the lithium battery pack charged on the back of the solar panel, and then you never have to worry about batteries again. So that's just 5 ways to save the battery on your Moultrie camera. And the last tip I'm gonna give you about getting better trail cam photos throughout the season is don't be afraid to move cameras as the season progresses. Obviously, if it's early season like it is now, I'm gonna hang it in known travel corridors, I'm gonna hang them along field edges, I'm gonna hang them over salt licks, I'm gonna hang them in places where I know deer are gonna visit in the summer. I'm not gonna leave those there the entire season. As deer start to shift from their summer to their fall pattern and start to do more deer breeding activity or leading into that, where they're gonna be hitting community scrapes or they're gonna be shifting to their fall range, I'm gonna hang cameras near bedding areas, I'm gonna hang them over scrapes, I'm gonna hang them near old community rubs, old fence posts and stuff that I know will get rubbed throughout the season. And then I might shift them again going into the actual hunt. I'm constantly trying to evolve where the cameras are hanging to get the most and the best intel throughout the entirety of the season. Now that doesn't mean I'm constantly going in there and moving cameras and putting ground scent all over the place, but it also doesn't mean that I'm afraid to go in there, pull a camera, shift it 150, 200 yards if it needs to be. I'm not gonna have it in one place in July and August and early September and then leave it there the rest of the season. I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna shift that to locations where I know deer will be. So that'll help you get more photos and better intel throughout the entire year. And then when you go back and look at all those photos in the app, in the gallery, go through that entire camera, you'll be able to understand, okay, maybe that buck is shifting from his summer range is here and he shifts 3/4 of a mile to a mile this direction, and you can start to figure that out simply by moving this throughout the season. So hope that helps you this year in the woods. Get out there, grab a few of these Moultries, get them hung up, and start to gather some intel so you have a better season ahead.